Welcome to the Fairlawn Chamber of Commerce Business Spotlight and Networking event. My name is Alan Cohen. I'm going to be your host for today. I run a company with my wife, Alan Cohen, called Living Great Real Estate here in Fairlawn. And I'm very happy to be moderating and hosting this event today. Today we have a terrific guest for you. Her name is Stella Lemberg. She's works with ABA Insurance Agency. It's a family-owned business. It's here in Fairlawn, and they handle all types of insurances. Hi, Stella. How are you today?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Hi, Alan. Hi, Evelyn. Hi, Greg. It's nice to see you guys.
Hi there.
Vacation, you know, Memorial Weekend coming up, so I'm enjoying the beach.
Very nice, very nice.
At least I wish I was at the beach.
Yeah, well, don't we all? If they open it, well, they're going to open it this weekend, I hear, correct?
I believe so, but I think I'm going to stay away from the beach this time around.
Yeah, Evelyn and I thought the same thing. We said, instead of going to the beach this weekend, we'll wait 2 weeks. If they live, maybe we'll go. If they don't, we'll stay where we are. But it's great to have you today because especially in times like this and other times, you have to be really covered with your insurance personally and business-wise. So it'd be great to get some insight from you on what's the best approach. Should we be looking at our accounts that we have insured right now of how our policies are? Should we be adjusting them and all that? So first of all, it's nice to see you. How did you really get into this business? And I see it's a family-owned business with your mom, your husband, brother, and yourself. So why don't you give us a little insight on yourself?
My mom started the business in 2009. It was, she was working for another agent, and it was around the time when the housing bubble was bursting and the prices, her mortgage was skyrocketing, and it was just a difficult situation. And she said she can't make a living working for somebody else, and she wanted to try starting her own agency. So in 2009, she opened up ABA Insurance Agency out of her home, and it was mainly word of mouth and a print advertisement. Before she knew it, she started getting enough clients that my dad was started saying, enough with these people coming in and out of our house. Open your own office somewhere. So she chose Fairlawn. They were living in Wayne at the time, and they moved to Fairlawn and started the agency. And the rest is history in regards to her. I joined the agency in 2017. Now, personally, I have 3 little kids who are home right now and don't want me to go do this interview, apparently, because they keep coming in.
We might have to get them on interview. That's
So I have 3 little children, ages 9, 7, and 4. And including being an insurance agent and business owner, I'm also a teacher now. I've been busy homeschooling, so every other day my husband and I take turns going into the office, and today's my day to be home.
So what is your background? Obviously, you didn't start, since you started so late to get into the company with your mom. What is your background?
So I have a finance degree, and my background is commodities trading and operations. When my youngest was born, it just was too difficult with the amount of travel that I was doing for work. I was at some point traveling a week, a month, every month from August until March. And it was just hard to be away from my kids, and my husband taking care of all 3 of them during that time. And I said, I needed to find another solution. And I decided to leave the job. I was unemployed, trying to figure out what to do with myself. My mom said, well, why don't you come work with me, at least for now, see if you like it. If you don't, move on. So that was August of 2017. Every few months I say, okay, Mom, a little longer and then I'll move on. I'll try something else. A little longer and I'll try something else. And it's been almost 3 years. I've taken the agency from having, you know, a PBX phone, antiquated software.
He's talking to giving back the phone to you.
Ava, you're making me sad. Please go. Talia, please give her the phone right now. This is very embarrassing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, I guess this is where I'll have to put in the iMovie and make the edit.
I'm sorry about that. I took the agency from having an antiquated phone system and a computer system and just changed everything over the last 3 years. We are pretty much almost paperless. We've gone digital. Our customers now have a customer portal if they want to access their documents, especially even for personal lines. If you have your home with one company and an umbrella policy with another, which can happen sometimes, you can see everything in one screen. But it's especially awesome for our commercial clients because let's say you're a contractor and you need to request a certificate of insurance. You can easily, if you just need to add the holder information, you can easily do it through our portal and receive a certificate in a minute. After you type in, the whole process takes 5 minutes to receive a certificate. So the one thing that I've added to the agency is I'm working on the branding. I'm working on making us 100% paperless. And because of some of these things, like having a voice over IP phone system, my staff almost seamlessly went to work from home. We have an IT company that services us remotely. We're able to really just take the situation and grow with it. And that's literally what I'm doing during this pandemic. I'm not standing still. I'm just constantly learning, constantly changing things, trying to do better for the agency.
That's terrific. So really you came in and really updated the entire system. And you also mentioned branding. Branding is so important for any company to get the name out and people recognize the brand and then to finally trust the brand. So how are you changing your brand? I mean, the brand itself is ABA Insurance. I mean, do you have like a tagline or a logo or a look? How are you making the brand more well known?
So when I say branding, I mean, I'm trying to do things that help us become a community business as well as recognizable, especially within town. So for example, the branding would mean the live videos that I do every week that people share and they see our logo. Branding meaning we're doing community outreach. I joined the local Rotary Club to not only give back to community because that's what I love to do anyway, but also to get to know people in the community and create a local feel and brand. We sponsor different one year we did the softball team and other things within. I want especially a community feel within Fairlawn. And I want them to know that not only do we live in Fairlawn, my husband grew up here, but we live here, we work here, and we want to support the businesses here.
Great. I mean, because you are a small business, so to speak, in Fairlawn, it was great that you joined also the Fairlawn Chamber of Commerce. It's a great way to network with other small businesses and some of the larger businesses in town. So networking seems to be the key for all companies to really get the name and the trust factor, because by being in town, people have to trust you and say, oh, I know of Allstate or I know of the big companies, but let me go with Stella. I met Stella at the chamber meeting. I met her at the Rotary Club. I met her at a street event or something like that. Let me give her a chance. And of course, people like to trust the person that they're working with and feel good about them, that knows that you're not only in it for the business, and giving back is so important. And sponsoring the baseball team, it's a small donation, but everybody sees probably your name on their t-shirts, right?
But it's also, for me, the reason I do it isn't even, I want the business, but at the same time I want the town to thrive. I I'm personally vested in the town. I have kids that attend, clubs and sporting. My son plays soccer at the rec center. These things are important to me for me to give back. At the same, and it's like a win-win. Not only am I giving back and getting to know the people in town, but also they get to know me and understand, we're here to stay and let's do this together.
Terrific. So why don't we get into the business aspect of it? So you handle all types of businesses. Now, do you price? I'm just trying to think. Are you looking at the bigger companies to get pricing so that your client could say, I want a policy with that or that? Or are you the actual company doing it? You're the agency. So really, you're outsourcing the actual insurance policy. Is that correct?
So the way an independent agent works is we take the policy, or you provide us documents that we request, and then we shop around for you. So in that aspect, we're more like a broker. So
Yeah.
we represent you. As an independent agent, we have, for personal lines, well over a dozen companies that we go to for shopping around, including Encompass, for example, which is an all-state company. We have Hanover, Plymouth Rock, Travelers. There's so many companies that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. For the commercial side, we try to cater to your niche. For example, if you have a specific type of business that's not on the standard market. When I say standard, it means your Progressive, your National General, your Travelers. There's a lot of companies that will take you. Those are standard. But let's say you're a company. I had a recent request that I'm dealing with that's difficult. He was doing wine tasting at people's houses and cognac tasting. It was his company. And he wanted to do classes on cognac and wine, French classes. So that is such a small market. Most standard markets will not take it. So I have to fill up accord forms, applications, and go to the surplus lines. We have access to so many different types of surplus lines that can help individuals. That takes longer, but we can do it. So in that aspect, we're the broker. As soon as you buy the policy, so you, let's say, buy your home and auto and umbrella through Hanover, as just an example. It's a platinum company, amazing customer service. You buy it through Hanover. We then flip the switch. We're no longer brokering you, trying to find a good match. We are a representative of Hanover then. We are appointed by Hanover. We are representative, and Hanover only deals with agents. You can't purchase a policy with them through a standard market. So then let's say you can't reach Hanover for a claim, you contact us, or you need documents, you can contact us. We are a representative, and that's where we're the agent aspect.
Great. So you mentioned a few things to me. First of all, I know with homes and auto insurance, because of the pandemic, a lot of them are giving rebates. Could you give us a little insight on that and how that's working? Is it like a forbearance where they're pushing the policy, back 2-3 months, or is it an actual rebate where, the clients do get money back?
Well, that's a great question. So right now, the rebates, number one, are with auto. And the reason they're doing it is they know with the stay-at-home orders, people aren't driving as much. People are working from home. So for example, if you normally drive 20 miles a day to and from work, you're not driving that much. Right. So they're taking people's policies and they're valuing at you're not driving and changing you really to pleasure. Their calculations are being altered to pleasure calculations. So if you had their vehicle at the pleasure level, you would have been paying X. So instead of you calling in and changing your policy, because then you'll have to change it back, it's phone calls they don't want to deal with, they're just saying across the board, 15% rebate April, May.
That's terrific. Well, that's I know I got a $15 rebate from my insurance company. I was happy, but now I see the reason why. because I thought they were just helping out financially, but really it is because you're cutting back on your driving, obviously. So you're less of a risk at that particular time, I guess.
Exactly. And just to also, the portion you were talking about, the forbearance. So
Yes.
let's say the insurance companies say to you, let's say you say the insurance companies, thank you for the rebate. I appreciate the 15% off, but I cannot make my payment, especially for commercial. I cannot make my payment right now. They will not cancel you at this point with most companies. They will then work with you to come up with a payment plan. So some companies are doing up to 60 days late. So they'll take that payment and break it up, let's say, for the rest of the term until you're able to pay, or come up with other arrangements. And honestly, I can't speak for everybody because each company is different. And I would highly recommend reaching out to your particular company. But at this point, if your insurance company has not provided some sort of rebate or break for you, you would know by now.
Right.
I would highly recommend reaching out to them because almost across the board, most standard auto insurance companies are giving something.
Right.
That said, if they're not doing something, I would highly recommend reaching out either to myself or another insurance agency and shopping around. This is definitely the time to do it.
Yeah, that's terrific to know. And also, when you are shopping around for policies, you mentioned something to me before we got on about insurance companies price your home and auto, and according to also your credit. I didn't really realize it was so much your credit rating as opposed to, say, if you're a driver, did you get into 2 accidents before, or how you drive. But it does have a lot to do with your actual credit score, the way that you do it.
So let's take a household with a couple, and you have 2 different credits. We try to do is once we realize who has the better credit, we always try to put the person with the better credit as the first name insured. Mm-hmm. The one with the least credit as the second name insured. Your price can get affected by your credit. Why? Your ability to pay your premium is your credit. So they look at you as, will this person pay their insurance? Will they, and as well as, have they had any accidents? So first we look at your record. How good, you have a clean record, perfect. And then we see, but you have a 500 credit rating. Well, your price is going to be significantly higher versus somebody with 640.
Right. So that's a good thing to know. And do they do that? They must do that automatically. I don't have to go back to my insurance agency right now and say, hey, do you notice we're up in the 800s and 700s? Are we getting full, taking full advantage of our credit, or vice versa, if you were doing lower?
So those numbers are usually calculated on a renewal basis. So let's say that your credit went up during the term of your policy, and when they run your renewal, they realize, oh, this person's credit is higher. So then the price will be affected. Or this person's credit is lower, the price will be affected. Or this person has had 2 accidents over the term of the policy. Yeah, he's a higher risk at this point. So they look at all aspects when they renew or when you get a policy issued. Any major changes, getting a new policy, adding to the policy to change the price.
That's terrific. Also, okay, so let's get into, because these interviews did start because of the pandemic, and we switched our monthly meetings. I know we have them now online, but then I started doing these interviews and these spotlights. So now that most of us are working from home, we probably have a lot of cybersecurity issues to deal with. How is that affecting our insurances right now? Do we have to get additions to the policy, or is that just taken in as it is?
So cybersecurity is mainly for businesses. I would, if you're, even if a small business or a large business, if you do not have cybersecurity, I highly recommend getting a standalone policy. The amount of cybersecurity you have on a business owner's policy, which is a BOP, is not enough. With people working from home, if your staff is working from home, you don't know 100% how they're doing things. You can have the best VPN, the best network set up, but things happen. And you want to protect yourself and your company by having a good policy. What will the policy protect? Well, in case your computers are locked due to ransom, in case a hacker was able to get your employee to click on a link and send money. There's so many different scenarios where the small amount of money you have in your BOP, now I'll let people look at their own policies. Some policies probably go up to 10,000. Well, there could be situations where it could, so let's say you're hacked, and then you have to reach out to all your clients saying you may have been affected. What happens then? Legally, you need to then provide credit monitoring to your clients.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on your book of business, that could put you under the amount of precautions you have to put into place, and the way you look to your clients too. Like, so your legal fees will be covered by cybersecurity insurance. The cleanup, the public relations aspect can be helped. $10,000 sounds like a lot, or $1,000 or $5,000 for cybersecurity, but it's not. It would not cover everything that you would possibly need in order to clean up what happened.
So now you say that's on your business policy. So we went from the personal, now we're on business. But I will like to go back to personal. But
Yes.
but since we are on the business side, is that in your general liability plan, or is that an additional policy that you would have to add? And do you get that from, because we also have E&O insurance, obviously, for errors and omissions. Do we get it from the errors and omissions company, or back to our regular company that has our general liability? Because they are two separate in my case. But yeah.
You have to understand each policy is a standalone, or you get something called a business owner's policy, which is combined. So a business owner's policy is like your catch-all. This is really great for small to some mid-sized businesses, because it gives you a little bit of everything. It gives you a taste. Think of it as like a flight of insurance. You get a little taste of everything. So you will get your general liability, you get your professional liability, yes. You would get some cyber, some accounts receivable coverage. If you have a storefront, it will cover your awning and your property on premises, but certain limits. Yes. And with that said, that's called a package policy. Then your general liability is if somebody gets hurt on your premises, sure. Or at your home, or something that, let's say you're a contractor and one of your employees trips and falls. There's different scenarios where general liability will cover. Professional liability will cover for slander and defamation of character, some legal fees, and so on. So let's say you are talking to a potential home buyer and you say something and then they sue you saying, well, Alan told me if I do X, Y, and Z, I would do, this scenario would happen. Well, then the professional liability will cover you legally and for what happened.
So, but back to my question. It seems like in my particular case, and it might be the same for other businesses, it would be with the company that is handling that general liability policy that they could umbrella out.
They can umbrella out, but it's a standard.
I don't know if that's the right term, but they could add the other policy to that.
And honestly, most standard carriers have a cybersecurity policy. So, for example, if you were to reach out to me, I can go with a Hartford, Liberty, CNA. There's so many different standard market companies that we shop around with for cybersecurity. It comes down to your need and the amount of coverage that you need.
Right. Okay. So now let's bring that to personal, because personally, you're on the internet, you're doing your banking online. So we covered business. Now we're doing our personal business online, credit cards, all that. Do we need a separate policy for cyber security for personally as well?
So if something were to happen on someone's site and your information is compromised, that business is responsible for for you getting compromised. If you went on Bank of America's site and your information got stolen, it's on Bank of America to then reach out to you, pay for your credit monitoring, and any damages that may have occurred due to the breach.
Wow, I didn't really realize it. So if I'm doing my banking online, in that sense, I am covered.
If Bank of America had the breach, yeah, you would
Wow.
be covered. Or I don't want to use any names, but it doesn't have to be a bank, but if a company has had a breach, it is their legal responsibility to reach out to you as the consumer. And that's where, as a business owner, it's very important to have cybersecurity. You never know what can happen these days with everybody being online.
Sure, of course. All right, and then I was going to bring up that, and then of course, so we have business. What's going on differently now because of the pandemic? So we cannot be covered for COVID-19 on any of these policies if we're losing business. Is that true?
So the business interruption section of your insurance policy, unfortunately, does not cover coronavirus. Business interruption insurance covers some sort of activity that has to happen. For example, let's say Hurricane Sandy. That's a great example because I'm on the beach now and I just
That's
feel
it.
it
Yeah,
makes me think of a hurricane. Hurricane Sandy happens and there's power outages.
Sorry about that.
No problem. The power outages are due to the hurricane. So there's a cause and effect. So due to the hurricane, you are a restaurant, the power went out. You lost all of this inventory of food. Well, that would be covered. But, with the coronavirus, what's been happening is businesses that can't, let's say you're a chiropractor's office and you can't operate because you don't have the items in place or you're non-essential maybe, or a different industry that's non-essential. Well, that's not covered. There's nothing that viruses are not included as in the cause and effect scenario. A tree falling on your roof, that's covered. So if business interruption would include viruses, that would include the flu, for example. So every year we have different strains of the flu and different issues that may arise. And a business owner can say, well, I have to shut down because I'm afraid the flu will affect my business. Insurance companies would not be able to withstand those kind of losses, those kind of things.
I mean, if there's a hurricane or there's a flood, we could get insurance for that type of stuff. But
Yes.
does it specifically say in it that viruses? I mean, they're saying, you're saying COVID-19 right now. Would that wording actually be in the policy? We do not cover COVID, or does it say that we do not handle viruses, etc.?
It would have to be apparel that is covered. For example, apparel that's covered is a power outage. Apparel that's covered is those are a pipe bursting. That would be covered. Right now, insurance companies are working on verbiage to add to policies, and honestly, they are being also sued, and they want to prevent any further loss. Long term, I do foresee, I mean, I obviously don't hold me to it, but I do foresee something changing where either they will include, and you'd have to opt out. It will be an extra cost to cover pandemic loss. For example, terrorism. Now, you may not realize it, but there is a box that you can check off if you want to opt out of terrorism coverage. Now, we didn't have 20 years ago, we didn't have terrorism coverage. So now it's an additional $7 or $10. It's not a huge difference on your price. A lot of businesses don't even realize it, but it's due to, September 11th happening, and now they are including terrorism as a covered.
And I bet you most people, I mean, do we all read the fine prints? So it's in there. You're already opted into a lot of these different parts of your policy, and it's up to you really to opt out more than to opt in some of them. But
Yeah.
but an agent like yourself, you should be the one, advising that client, and
Exactly.
that's why they would go to somebody like you or your family's agency, because you're going to tell them what they really need for their particular needs.
So especially with the terrorism, the reason I mention it is because it's like ingrained in the back of my mind. Whenever I go over a policy with somebody, I do say, just so you're aware, there's an additional cost due to terrorism. Do you have any questions? Is there a reason you want to be in or out of it? And if they ask me, yes, I want to learn more about it, or no, just keep it, I then we'll go through the different scenarios of what could happen due to terrorism and if your business is interrupted.
Great. Yeah. Very, very interesting. More information than I knew on insurance. I'm going to open it up in just a minute or so to any of the other guests, if anybody else would like to speak, and ask you questions about it. So those of you that are online with us, would anybody like to chime in and ask Stella a question about insurances? I know we have a few guests with us today.
Hi, yes, Stella. This is Greg Duslinski. How are you doing?
Greg, could you put on your video? Would you mind?
Oh, sorry. I thought I did. There we go.
You look so
There we
good.
go. Hello.
Then we could. It'll be on the video. That would make it.
There you go.
Hi, Greg.
Hello, Stella. How are you?
Hi, Greg. Good. How are you?
Good. I got a quick question. Going back to the beginning, you were talking about branding and social media. What is the one thing that you did that you're so happy that you can't live without in the social media, getting your name out there in the community?
Just by being active, honestly, because when I first took over the social media aspect for my mom, it was stagnant. There was the activity was not consistent. Social media and people watching you crave consistency. So if you say every Friday at 12:30 you're going to do something, you better do it at 12:30 or set it up to go automatically. There are so many different apps out there to help you stay consistent. So the one thing I must say is just every week having posts, every week finding ways to engage. And now as I'm growing the social media, every Friday, for example, I do a different interview. And starting in June, I'll be doing quick videos pre-recorded called Tip Tuesday. So every month there are insurance themes. This month it's fire prevention, so I may even do it starting next week instead of in June. I'm just looking at different options, but it's social media needs you to continuously post and to be consistent. I hope that answered your question.
That's great, Greg.
That's great. Thank you. Yep. Thank you.
Consistency, because like you said, I once had a professor years back, and I took a social media class, of course, and then he said exactly what you did. Be consistent, because people are expecting it. And at that time, he was sending out a newsletter to all the students. It was at William Patterson University. And this is going back 3, 4, 5 years ago. Every Sunday at 7 p.m., he sent out a newsletter of what's going on in the music business, in the community, or whatever. Do you realize 5 years later, or whatever it is, Sunday night at 7 p.m. every week, since then, I get a newsletter from him. And it's always something new, even if it's small. Even if he's on vacation like you at the beach, it's so hard to get away onto your computer. But if people are expecting Stella to post something on Thursday at 12 o'clock, Stella should do that, because if you don't, that's when people might go to somebody else for a minute.
Exactly. Or they
If
really,
not fast, you lose them.
exactly. And then and then they forget. So every Friday they tune in to whatever thing you have. And then one Friday you forget. And then they're like, oh, okay, she's not doing it anymore. And it falls off their radar. And once you fall off the radar, they think of somebody else.
They do. So to answer Greg's question, what are you doing? It seems like you really updated the technology for your company with the social media and taking all these type of things to update it. I mean, your mother's obviously a generation older. It's harder for older people to stay ahead. So having fresh blood like you in the family business could only help with all these fresh ideas.
Let me chime in on that for a second. On that point, I'm going to segue to how do you engage Gen X, Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Z, the new generation, the, millennials and the younger generations that are buying homes in terms of insurance inquiries when the realtors are actually at times, if they're savvy enough, sell them a home warranty policy.
Wait, home warranty policy?
Home warranty policies, which is insurance on, a lot of the stuff in the house, on the construction that was done. And so they're kind of getting it from the realtors that are selling it to them as an extra service.
So I don't sell home warranty policies, but the way I stay, for example, I'm considered a millennial. So the way I stay in touch with people like myself and younger is by watching the trends. I'm always on the lookout for new hashtags. I'm always on the lookout for what is trending in my industry. I read a lot of blogs. I read a lot of news articles, and I try to see where the trends go. So, for example, now the new trend is TikTok. You probably wouldn't think of TikTok as a way to market your business. Well, guess what? I'm already doing it. I'm already setting it up.
Be careful, it's owned by a country that's not exactly our friend these days. And they're doing a lot of intelligence research, so be cautious with what you TikTok.
So the reason I say it is there's a mortgage person that I follow on TikTok that has over 100,000 followers. 100,000 followers, and mostly Gen Z. So those are the next people buying homes. Those are the next people who are trying to learn about finance.
So I don't mean to interrupt you about it because on TikTok, my wife Evelyn obviously shows me TikToks. Everybody does a silly dance. How do you steer that into business? I mean, you're not going to do silly little things as an agency, as an insurance agent. So how do you?
Well, one thing I'm going to tell you is when this is over, go on TikTok and do #mortgage. Or look for the mortgage guy. Literally, that is his name. That's the guy who inspired me to do it. And he turns these videos that are meant to be fun and silly into great ways of being fun and silly and educational. So things that we don't, at least when I went to school, I never received information about insurance. Nobody sat down with me and said, Stella, when you grow up, when you finish high school, when you finish college, insurance, or even before college, insurance is really important. You should understand what liability coverage is. Or Stella, this is how you balance your checkbook. This is how you do this or that. There's very little education for those in high school of what to do next. So this is a great way of getting a captive audience and educating them. And the reason this came into my radar is a lot of doctors and medical professionals are using TikTok to reach out to Gen Z. They're doing the fun and silly dances while telling them, I follow a vet, for example, and he makes it silly about arthritis for dogs or whatever the case may be. And I enjoy it. Back to the original question, how do you engage and how do you stay consistent.
No, that wasn't the original. My original question was actually, which I'm still waiting for an answer, hoping you're going to give it to me, was how do you engage these folks with buying insurance that it's important? Is it important to them anymore? And the realtors are selling insurance to them when they're buying homes. How are you getting into that loop? And how do you tell them that it is important?
But Evelyn, excuse me, you as an agent or broker, you're not really selling them.
Not I, but I know agents that do sell them all the time.
Well, is that coming from you as an
An
agent,
insurance company.
from insurance companies?
I think I understand that. So
Yeah.
there are certain real estate agencies that partner up locally with insurance agencies. So essentially, number one, insurance is a legal aspect. You have to have insurance. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. So when you buy a home, the mortgage requires you to have insurance. And I look at real estate agencies that own or partner with insurance agencies as just another competitor that's in the industry. I see them as just another Geico, as just another State Farm. And we each have our own way of doing things. We each have our own following, our own clientele that would come to us. But at the end of the day, it comes down to you as an individual and who you attract. Not everybody is going to be my client, and that's okay. Not everybody is as risk averse as me, and that's okay, because my goal is, if you call me up or email or text or Facebook message me or TikTok, whatever the case may be, if you reach out to me in many different platforms and you say to me, Stella, I really don't understand what I'm being covered for, I will be more than happy to explain it. And that's where it's my opportunity to shine, my opportunity to educate. And if I can't help them, my bottom line is they move on to somebody and they are then more so educated or empowered to ask the right questions. Mm-hmm. You know, their insurance agents are a dime a dozen. There's one literally, you know, an agency I can throw a rock at basically from my building. I don't know if they're still open, but
have you ever thrown a rock at them though?
Not at, from my
Hopefully they're insured. With you.
I'm insured. I mean, there's insurance agencies everywhere, but the way you stand out is with the way you give the customer experience. And that's where our app comes in. That's where the education comes in. That's where we try to do things a little differently. We offer Russian, Hebrew, and English speaking, as well as Spanish in our agency. So it's about the customer experience. I don't even look at at real estate agencies. My business comes a lot from lawyers and mortgage brokers and a lot less from real estate agents. So, you know, especially a mortgage person has a lot more influence, I feel, than a real estate agent. A lawyer may have a little bit more influence than a mortgage broker. So I just look at different streams of connections and I build them. You know, relationships are key. I don't just expect business from my referral partners. We communicate. I try to be friends. We try to get to know each other, because at the end of the day, insurance is about trust. If you can't trust me or my family to help you with your insurance, then you might as well call Progressive directly. You might as well call Geico and get somebody from a call center, you know. And that's where the branding, you know, circling back to the branding and the growing the community feel of our agency, we want you to feel like you're a part of our family.
Mm-hmm. And we are. And after today, I think we're all coming over for dinner when The quarantine is over. You made us feel so at home. I just want to say, to wrap this up, and then we'll open the floor again, is you just said something really, really great for all businesses, that not everyone is going to be your client. And I think all businesses, once they understand that, or they, put that in their mind, then you work on people that also fit your mold. Like that just kind of just happened to us recently. There's a neighbor down the block that we've been schmoozing years. He knows my family. He asked us to come in and help him sell his house, live that. And then in the last minute, he went with somebody else, one of my big competitors in town. Of course, at first, it upset us. And then we finally said to ourselves, they don't fit our brand, or they don't fit our mold. Maybe it's not right to represent them because they are not fitting the Living Great brand in that sense. And then 2 days later, we got another big listing from somebody else. So as the door closed on somebody that we really thought we've been nurturing, somebody else comes in and opens up that does fit our brand. So not everyone is going to be a client is really, really a great expression from you. And one other one, you said relationships are key, and that's what this networking is about.
Well, one thing I always say is the difference between contract and contact. Sorry.
Don't leave us now. Don't jump in the water. Oh.
The difference between contact and contract is the R, and R stands for relationships. You don't go from contact to contract without having that human feel and the relationship aspect.
That's really terrific. Great things. Stella, I want to thank you very much from the Fair Lawn Chamber of Commerce for being our guest business spotlight for today. Stella Lemberg is from ABA Insurance Agency here in Fair Lawn. Please, if you're looking for insurance, Stella should be really the first person that you call, and I'm sure that relationship is going to develop immediately with you. So thank you very much. And the insight on insurance was really terrific. It will help all the people watching this event. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on. I do appreciate it.
Okay.
Can I ask her one quick question?
Oh, yeah, as we close it out, anybody can ask a question.
Stella, I've used TikTok, and I recorded a couple of videos and I put them out there, but they're not out there.
Well,
How do you push them actually out so people can see them?
hashtags are important. I would highly recommend, putting the good trending hashtags, and just if there's an industry that you're interested in, first try to see if there's one that exists, because if it doesn't, you are going to be the trendsetter.
That was really a technical question. I don't think you answered it, but I'm going to figure it out. I mean, I did a couple of videos and I don't know how to actually just get them out there. So no instructions really, unless I go to Google and, try to find it.
And that's where the joke is about the different generations. If you have to Google instructions on how to do something, then the app wasn't for you.
Just ask your children. I think that's the best.
I'll ask my kids.
That's why I laugh, because, I went from, Instagram, whatever, let's do this Instagram thing, to now TikTok. And I'm like, just out of my element to be like, am I really getting this? I made one video with my daughter for fun. I made it one public, one private. And, now I'm starting to get into it, but my initial feeling is, wait, what is this TikTok thing? And how do you operate it?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So as we get to the end, would anybody else, any other questions, or
Nope.
we have one other guest online who hasn't said hello yet.
I'm going to have to leave. I got to take this other call out, guys. It was great seeing you, Stella. Gregory, so long.
Why don't we close out?
So long.
Once again, thank you for joining Fair Lawn Chamber of Commerce Business Spotlight Networking.
Alan, great job, Alan. Sorry I was on mute. I was driving.
Oh, you're driving. There you go. Thank you for joining in. I did see you were watching. Terrific. Thank you, Stella, our guest business spotlight. And the spotlight was on you today, Stella. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you so much.
Bye.